So welcome everyone to this month. We are going to be talking about customer stories and successes and how to share them. I think this is everyone's bane of their existence and biggest struggle, yet the reason why we work in B2B is to turn them into advocates and sell for us. So I want to thank Sabrina, Delaney, and Stacy for volunteering their knowledge and talking to us about how they do it at their organizations. I want to say also a big thank you to Collaboration Works for sponsoring this call. This is what keeps our lights on here and allows these sessions to stay free and just sharing is caring when it comes to learning. So thank you to Collaboration Works. So I will pass it off to Stacy if you want to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name is Stacy Campbell. I work for Express Info. I am the Director of Business Development. We're located in San Antonio. I have been with Express for, I think, almost 9 years. When I first started, I knew nothing about accounting. And 9 years later, I feel like I definitely am finally getting the hang of it. And it's been great. We are a small company, 20 employees. So we're more of a little boutique agency. We do work with customers all over the US. But our favorite thing is doing that, giving people that special attention that you can get with a smaller agency and working with them on a one-to-one basis. And so that's who I am.
Very cool. Thank you. Delaney, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Delaney Freer-Sanford, and I am the Global Marketing Manager at OnActuate. I started at OnActuate back in 2021. I was kind of that round of many people who got new jobs during the COVID pandemic. And at OnActuate, we're global technology and consulting firm. We're a Microsoft partner. We're based out of Vancouver, but we have customers everywhere. We've been around for about 10 years, and we still have some of the same customers that we had when we initially started, which is very cool to be able to say. So I feel like a big part of what we do is being people first, and that means not just our employees, but also our customers, kind of building those relationships and caring about the people. So that ties in really nicely to today's topic.
Can't wait to hear all about that. Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Sabrina, why don't you tell us a bit about you?
Hi, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sabrina Zamera. I'm the Director of Demand Generation at Velosio. And at Velosio, we support the entire Microsoft Business Applications stack. We have about 450 employees. And I've been in the channel for just over 13 years, working with different Microsoft partners. And here at Velosio, I get to work with an exceptional team of marketers. And my favorite part of my job is exactly what we're talking about today. I love telling the stories about how we are helping customers succeed with technology and through their partnership with Velosio. So really, really excited about this topic today. The other thing that we do here at Velosio is my team also supports all the marketing initiatives around Stratos Cloud Alliance. So if you work at a smaller partner, maybe you engage with Stratos Cloud Alliance, but we work with other Microsoft partners to help you have the resources to be as successful as possible. So excited to be here today.
Thank you, everyone. And I think also a last thank you to Anya and Michelle, who are going to keep track of the chat because, sometimes I get so wrapped up in the conversation, I forget to see what's going on in the chat. So please ask your questions. If you have any tips, air your grievances, whatever you want, by all means. We are here, we are living the same thing. So I think that's what makes this community so interesting at the same time. So please do that. Oh yeah, and you can always come off mute and turn on your camera. I'm still waiting for my first. So, after 3 years, I think don't be shy. Don't be a stranger. No one here will be mad at you. All right. So without further ado, let's get to our first question. So how do you publicize this? How do you, which type of format do you usually share these testimonials in? Where do you usually share them? Delaney, why don't we start with you? Let you kick it off. How do you share the good news about customer success?
Yes, this is a big question. I think there are so many different format options when you're sharing a customer success story, and it really is a case by case basis. It kind of depends on the size of the project, the type of project, and funnily enough, kind of the personalities of the people that you're working with at that customer organization. So for example, if maybe you have like a really big ERP rollout at a manufacturer, that could be an opportunity where maybe you would want to coordinate a vendor and do an in-person video where you go on site. There could be, because they're a manufacturer, some kind of exciting B-roll footage that you could film. Maybe the contact that you have there is a really dynamic speaker and they're interested in being on video and they kind of see the value in that. Then you can take that opportunity to record, like a longer 2 to 3 minute video and some smaller snippets that you can slice and dice out for shorter videos that you could share on social media and things like that. I will say that what I just described is a lot of work. It's a big investment of both time and your budget, which as marketers, we never feel like our budget is big enough. So I would say that's not our typical approach. I feel like usually what we do from a format perspective is we create like a blog or a web page and then convert that same content into like a one-page PDF. And then we can repurpose that content in a variety of different ways. You can pull snippets, so you can put, testimonials on relevant pages throughout your site, or you can do a social media post where you're sharing just a little bit. Kind of the goal of all of this, which as marketers, any content we create, you want to be able to slice and dice and repurpose 1,000 different ways so that you're kind of maximizing that effort that you put in. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I'm out of breath.
No, you're good. You're good. But yes, repurposing is the name of the game here. And I think you hit the nail on the head. These things take a lot of time, effort, and money. So you want to stretch that bad boy for as much as you can to get everything out of it. So no, I think that is great to keep in mind too, that there's nothing wrong with having a balance. Not everything has to be a video, or sometimes blogs like get the job done too. Some have something that's a little more quick and dirty, and how you can repurpose it afterwards. That's good, because I think sometimes as marketers we get to the point where like everything has to be perfect and we want like the coolest thing, but that's not always necessary. Sometimes it's just getting the word out there. So no, that's really cool that you do a little bit of everything. And what about you, Stacy? What are some of the ways you share the good word?
So we do almost exactly what Delaney said, but I have two additional pieces. And one is we do a lot on YouTube. So we take those snippets or those videos. We had a anniversary party a number of years ago, and when people were there, we had a video room set up so people could come in. So it cut the cost on doing the videos. They were able to speak and give us a little, like, we were like, why do you love Express? And we asked a couple of pointed questions, and then we were able to use those snippets and break them up. So it was more cost effective. It wasn't as big of a B-roll production of going on site and doing that, but we still were able to get some great little, in-person cutaways that we've been able to use on LinkedIn or social or on YouTube to help bolster that. And the second thing we do is that when we do a case, which is when like somebody has an issue with something and needs help with our consultant, we follow up with a delighted survey, and we send them this delighted survey, and we get another snippet quote. And I use those quote snippets on our website, on social media. So they may only be 1 or 2 sentences, but sometimes that's enough. Like, you don't need I love the case study. Don't get me wrong. I love a great long case study with great nuggets of information, but sometimes just getting one or two sentences like, Wendy was great. She helped us solve our problem really quick. It doesn't need to be super in depth, but it just lets people know why they love you.
Yeah, and that comes back to the first point of, okay, we think we need to do all this stuff in this big hurrah, but just getting little things out there in this day and age where no one has any attention spans anymore anyway. After 30 seconds, no one's listening. So just having that testimonial that Wendy was great or so and so did a great job, sometimes that's just enough to convince someone that, okay, if these people are ready to vouch, they're in my industry, or I recognize that logo. Sometimes that's all it takes, and it doesn't really matter what is said after that, as long as it's positive. So that's cool. And also getting like doing a 2-for-1 like that, getting everyone in the room and just be like, hey, while you're here, can you say something as well? That's an
Right.
easy way to get across.
That whole party was to make sure that that video room always had somebody in it. And I would just snag them and be like, don't you want to say something of why you love Express? And I'd walk them over, and then I would just, that was my whole job, is just not, just keeping that room full of people. And people were more than willing to do it. And, it's, so it was a really nice thing.
And I think it's probably less stressful too than having this big production company come to their firm as well and stuff. Just a little like, you just have to say 2 sentences and then you're good to go. You probably get more eh, candid and appreciative information out of that too. Oh, and
Right.
Anya said you just give them free food. You know, that works too.
Say something nice.
Yeah. Just make sure there's no spinach in the teeth afterwards, right? Like, um, all right, let's continue on from there. So, which assets have been the biggest impact to you? Delaney, why don't you start us off here?
Yes, this it can be a little bit of trial and error, I think, when you're kind of trying different assets in different ways to get that customer success story across. I think some of the things to keep in mind, which we already mentioned a little bit, is just like attention spans are short. So, you know, no matter how beautifully crafted your case study customer success story is, if it's 10 pages long, you've lost everyone. So, keeping it short. If it's a written piece, bolding your section headers throughout, having really engaging, simple visuals to help kind of support some of the metrics that you're sharing. And really clear ROI examples. So any assets where you can really clearly say, their problem was this, our solution was this, now they see this. I think a lot of times you'll see, and I'm guilty of this too, you'll see things out there like streamlined operations and enhanced efficiencies. And that sounds beautiful, and it's true, but from a organization perspective, they're wanting to see more specific examples. So this is a little bit off topic, but my advice would be
No, go.
get involved early in the project as a marketer. If you your project team, they have a goal in mind of, they know the project scope, they know the deliverables that they're shooting for, but they're not necessarily watching to see, okay, they want to improve this process. How long does it take them right now? They might not be thinking of it in that way. So the sooner you as a marketer can get involved, even if you're just kind of listening in and taking notes of a few areas that could be potential ROI metrics to revisit at the end of the project, that's super valuable as well, versus waiting to get involved until after the project is done and being like, okay, were we tracking this specific example? Like, what can we share? So any assets that have that kind of specifics in them would be super valuable. And I think from the assets with the biggest example perspective, what I have seen is if it's obviously it depends, but like a customer page or like a web page with a really brief write-up, and also either a written testimonial or a short video or something like that, that has been the highest for us. But things change all the time, so I hate to say this is the tried and true method. Don't try anything else.
No, we're marketers. We have to try and test and then bang our head up against the wall why it didn't work and do it again. So no, this is good though. Lauren had a question and you kind of answered it, but just in case there's some other things that you might have might jog your memory, how do you get those quantifiable results from your clients? So one thing was getting involved in the project. Is there anything else any of you do to squeeze that information out of those who are doing the implementation?
I can talk to our experience. Like I really try to do everything I can to make it as easy for the customer as possible, trying to reduce the amount of time that they need to take to provide input. And how we do that is we try to capture everything on our side internally first. So we'll do a lot of internal interviews. I'll get all the information from our consultants, from the sales team, so we can write up that first draft. And then we can take it to the client and just let them know we just really only need 15, 20 minutes of your time. We'll have a very quick conversation, and then we'll update that case study with their perspective and send it over to them immediately. So it's still top of mind to them. It's still, I just had this conversation, and they can immediately approve it. Because the length of time from the time you have that interview to the time that you produce a case study for them to approve, the longer that time span is, the less likely they're going to take the time to approve it, is what we found. So the easier you make it for them and the faster you make it for them, and just really making sure that they know, like, we're going to promote your company too. Like, this is free advertising for you as well, and we appreciate your partnership. That's what we do from our side.
That's
That-
cool.
That's great. I was gonna say from our side, and we haven't implemented this yet, but this is something we're planning to implement, is when you're doing an implementation, we're really great on all the pre-meetings and the implementation meetings. Where we're not so great is on an exit interview kind of meeting. So we're going to try to implement kind of this exit interview meeting about talking about how the implementation went, the handoff between the consultant and what happens after this amazing implementation. And in that conversation, that was hopefully where we'll start to get more of these little nuggets to make it easier for them for us to create that case study, as opposed to maybe it having to be another meeting and another call. So we're still working on it, but this in my head, it seems to be that would be maybe an easier way to get them to say yes, is that it's part of this implementation go live process in this exit meeting kind of conversation.
I think that catches a lot of different things too. It's not just you trying to get like squeeze them for marketing details. It's also beneficial for them. So I think that could be a great way to, close the loop too on the project, and like that carryover too is so important. So
Yeah.
great
'Cause
ideas.
I want to say this gentleman who asked the question, how do we persuade them? We struggle with that. So that's why this idea about this exit interview came up, because sometimes when they're already 6 months, a year into it and they're already implemented, they're not thinking about a case study or where they were, or testimonial where they were a year ago. They're already past it. So getting them to come back and revisit that is sometimes a challenge.
Do any of our other panelists I'm sure you feel the same struggle. Was there anything you were able to do to persuade them or convince them or jog their memory on how terrible it was before and how awesome it is now? Any other tips to add to that?
Yeah, it is kind of a tricky thing because you want to do it while it's still fresh, but not while it's too fresh, right? There's always that stabilization period after project go live where you're kind of, getting those last little bits and making sure they get through, maybe it's that first payroll cycle or whatever it is that you need them to get through that first before you can say, look how great it was. So I think, and it's important to remember too that, that customer, they have their own full-time job that they're working in, and typically they're not, in the writing space. So the idea of a quote to them, so even if you're not doing a full-blown case study, even if you're just asking for a brief testimonial, can seem a little bit overwhelming to them. So what we have found success with in the past is just scheduling a quick call with someone else at your organization that they have a rapport with, that they're familiar with, comfortable with. So the three of you just get on a call. I'll have, a few questions prepared, and I'll either, record if they're comfortable or just take notes, and they can kind of answer my questions. We're having more of a conversation. And then I'll say, hey, thank you so much. I'm just going to type up your responses to these questions and shoot them over to you via email. Let me know if they look okay. And then that way you can kind of add, like, I'm not sure of the correct term, marketing finesse, or, just kind of put together
Clean it up a bit.
their long thought, make it a little bit more of a concise sentence where you're not embellishing, you're not adding anything, but you're kind of helping craft that kind of more succinct testimonial. Because a lot of times they're just overwhelmed by the concept of it and they don't understand, that they have that answer. It's just not something they're used to doing.
All right, so you ladies have the magic touch. There are lots of questions in the chat, and this is a hot topic. Another question that came in is, do you ever do anonymous case studies? I guess that kind of goes with the people don't want to give their name or are not ready for it. So have you guys ever done that?
When we write up our first draft of case study based on our internal interviews, we'll take it to the client, and if they do not want to participate, then we'll publish it without their name and just make it general, right? So like a construction company, face these challenges, because we ideally want their name, but we want to tell the story about the cool things that we're doing and how we're helping companies. And so if we can't get their name, we will post it without it.
You've already done the work at that point. You've already gotten the details, and you're right. Like sometimes, yes, the name helps and stuff like that, but sometimes people just want to know, does this work for my industry? Do you understand my problem and stuff? And just telling that story is sometimes more than enough. Okay, I think that's the same one. Generic case studies. Chatted about that. I think we're up to date. Anya, Michelle, keep me honest if I forgot anything else. I'm trying to keep this going. Back to you, Sabrina. What are some of the assets that you've published that have the biggest impact? Is it videos? Is it blogs? Is it a combination? What works for Velosio?
Yeah, and I piggyback on everything that's been said, right? So we'll do written case studies, we'll do videos, we put those into blogs, we put those on our website, on YouTube. But I think what's really been impactful that we haven't talked about yet today is we also, every time we conduct a case study, we update a PowerPoint deck that has a slide that has an overview of what's the industry, what's the solution, what challenge they had, what did we provide, and what's the output and benefit. And then our sales team can use that as kind of like a case study Rolodex, right? So when they're talking to a new prospect, it's easier for them to pull out real life stories and have those conversations. Our business development reps who follow up with leads use those. And then our marketing team, when we're putting together campaigns and we're putting together assets to target specific types of projects, we can use and refer back to those case studies and use those in proof points. We also build out a Excel doc with every single quote that comes out of a case study too, so we can pull that out and put it into blogs where it's applicable, or other marketing assets. So we're just trying to make it easier, not only for the client or prospect to understand how we can help them, but to help our sales team sell.
That is definitely a pro tip. The case study Rolodex. You get the quote of the meeting so far. I'm definitely gonna bring that back. And I think we forget that side of it, that case studies are not just to be published and as a marketing purpose. And that's a great point, is okay, we have to make it consumable, that the salespeople who actually speak to the clients and who are actually going to push them towards this document and content, that they're going to see it. And have, like, I'm sure we've all done that. Do you remember that client who did that thing? What, like, what was their name again? What industry? Or you needed three references. By having that spreadsheet, I think that is a fabulous way to go about it. And then Carol also wants to know more about your Rolodex. Can you tell her what's included on the slide? Is there like is it always the same template, or do you mix it up?
Yeah, we use the same template, and I'll pull it up here and I can share my screen and just show you an example. But essentially, it has the client logo, their industry, the size of company, how many employees, because we're trying to map that success to make it repeatable to other prospects that we're working with. It has just a general overview of what they do. Usually pull out like one specific quote from there, and I'll find this. You guys
All right.
continue on. I'm gonna find this deck and I'll quick share it so you guys can grab a screenshot if it's of interest to you.
Perfect. I think this is our first CMA show and tell. This is a very exciting step or evolution. We might add this to our future sessions. So I will keep going because I know how stressful it is to try to find something and everyone's looking at you while you race through all your files that you think are very well organized, and then you realize they're not when you're looking for something. So we touched upon it a bit, but I guess oh, okay, here we go.
Can
Okay,
you
good.
can you see it?
I didn't have to buy that much time in the end.
Yeah, so it just has the logo, a little overview of them, a title, what we did, what the solution was. So we just have a little snippet, and then we can just scroll through here all the different case studies that we've done and what we provided to each of them.
That's actually fantastic.
Yeah. That Rolodex is that is a clutch Rolodex. I don't know. I'm very, very cool. I think anyone who's on the call, that was worth the 1 hour spent. Plus all the other cool stuff we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. But I think that thank you for sharing and being so transparent with us on that. Okay, so we see the end result, how cool it is and how awesome. But what's the hardest part on getting all of this started? I think I have an idea of what people are going to say, but Stacy, what is the hardest part of getting these testimonials or getting people to say yes to this?
My hardest part necessarily isn't for them to say yes. They say yes, and then following through and actually having the meeting is the hardest part. Because they seem eager in the beginning, but then setting the meeting and following up, even though it's only 20 minutes, sometimes seems to be a hurdle. And I'll piggyback on something that was in the chat, is that we have had people say yes, but then their legal says no. So before you go and spend money and time and energy, and this has happened with a couple nonprofits we've had where their legal or board has said no. We have had a technology company that has a proprietary building technology that we thought was super, super cool, and they had a great story, but they said no. So and I'll also piggyback on the generic. Well, generic is fine. It's really not as good, in my opinion, as having and I could have said this construction company, but if I had been able to say, and I won't use their name, this 3D manufacturing housing company did this and use their name, that would have had a lot more weight than this construction company. So that's my biggest hurdle is attorneys and follow-up.
Yeah, those attorneys, I think everyone, we won't get into that group.
No,
We won't air those grievances on this call,
No.
but that's a good point, is really to be mindful of that from the get-go and make sure you have those approvals before you start like bringing your cameras over and spending all that money and budget on
because
things. So
I'll be honest, I'm a one-man marketing show. It's me, only me, so we outsource it. So I don't want to have to pay the fee to the woman that does our case studies for something that in the end, I'm sure she's done all the work and now we need to make sure that we have that approval up front before she goes forward and does those. And, they're great. They're a great one. They're a great 2-pager with a great story and great information, but I would hate to see her do work that then we can't use.
Yeah, there's nothing sadder than a PDF that becomes shelfware and it's just sitting there collecting dust because you can't publish it. So, great tip. Sabrina, what is some of the hardest stuff for you to get going with these things?
Sometimes I think the thing that we struggle with the most, especially with enterprise clients, these are larger deals, right? They're projects that go on for a longer amount of time. It's like, when do we start on this? It could be 3 phases of a project, and can we start a case study now and then do that on phase 1 and move on to phase 2 then? So a lot of the case studies sometimes will become a series of articles that we do if it's a longer process, but it's that timing around when is the best time to approach this case study and who's the right person to go to. That's definitely the biggest struggle that we have.
Yeah, especially in bigger projects that always, even the best ones get a little rocky at some points of a time. One day they're happy, one day they're not. So I think Stacy, it was you that said the shortest amount of time between, like getting it approved is key. So, uh, good point there. And Delaney, do you have any anything to add in regards to what's some of the hardest things that you see and how you overcome them?
Yeah, I think both Stacy and Sabrina made really great points. It definitely is sometimes hard to know where to start. I think what can also be tricky too is, if your leadership team is really eager to have, 20 case studies a month, or, the team really wants all of it now, and you have to kind of help your leadership understand, like, these take time and this is why, and you want to approach them thoughtfully and write them well so that they're worth the investment of your time, or if you're working with a vendor to help create it. So just kind of setting those internal expectations and kind of having a plan accordingly, which, like Sabrina said, the timing of that it might be a little bit of a moving target, because a lot of times with technology projects, you go into it and this is the scope, but then, oh, we've added on this. So now the go live has been pushed back to here, or, so you kind of have to keep up with all of that. And then just even to, I know we touched on this briefly earlier, but helping the customer to see the value of them participating. So, it's brand recognition, it's, promotional opportunity for you. Like, this piece will maybe help position you as a leader in your industry, or show that you're using cutting edge tech because you implemented this. So just kind of helping them to see the value of why they should spend the time talking about that kind of project, because in their, mindset, they're on to the next. They're not looking back the way that we are. So that can be kind of tricky too, kind of getting that buy-in so they spend the time to help you get that information.
Another question, and I think it links in well here. Do you ever incentivize them for doing a case study, or have you ever sent a nice thank you note back to them? Is there anything you do from that side to after the fact, or saying, hey, if you do it, we'll give you this? Do you do it that way ever? Do any of you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. We have a program for, a thank you for people who do case studies, but I want to tie this answer back to a challenge that we have as well. So Microsoft always has new technologies coming out, right? And we are trying to be a leader in the forefront of these new technologies, and we'll just use Copilot for instance. But I want case studies to support how effective we are in deploying Copilot for our clients. But if we don't have clients using Copilot yet because it's brand new, very difficult to get those case studies. So in those situations, we will incentivize clients to not only do a case study with us, but deploy those technologies that are just coming out onto the market and work with us on that. So we'll give free licenses or work with them on specific deliverables that we'll provide to them in exchange for them engaging in the case study afterwards. So it kind of incentivizes them to do that case study. So it's a little bit of an answer to that question, but also helps us address that challenge of how do we have success stories on new technologies.
No, I think that um, that's true because we want to stay on the cutting edge, but it's a bit of a chicken and egg at that point. I think that's a cool way of looking at it. Another question that's come in is, has anyone had success pitching your customer for Microsoft to do a case study in the past? This was possible. Have any of you done it or have thought about doing it and abandoned it because it was too hard or long or all the above?
We just had this opportunity to do a case study with a client with Microsoft. The biggest challenge that we found from that perspective is the Microsoft timeline is very, very fast to what when they ask for that or when we were brought to the table to have those discussions to when they want commitment from the client and the deliverables to happen. So that's been our biggest challenge, but just having those open communication and dialogue with Microsoft around really, really great stories that showcase how Microsoft technology is really changing business. They're definitely open to it, but the timeline is short and it makes it very difficult to execute on.
Yeah, I think if anyone's worked with Microsoft, they sympathize with that one. So, we're gonna take a
Tanya?
short. Yeah.
I was just going to say, before you get into the sponsor thing, there's two questions we didn't cover. One is
Oh, okay.
that someone likes to use pictures, faces in their testimonials, but sometimes people don't like to have their faces in there. How important do you think faces are? And the other one is, if the client says no, probably this is for Sabrina, and you do a generic case study, what if it's obvious who the client is? Do you still choose to go forward with it or worry about the attorneys?
I think that's such a case by case basis, right? Like how specific it is. But I think that you can write it in a way that people understand the industry, they understand the solution that you provided, but it just has to be written in a very, very specific way. But if you're ever in doubt and you're like, these people are mad at us, they're going to sue us if they find out we did this, I would not do it.
And anything about have you ever run into the picture question of having faces or anything like that?
I mean, I think when you think of any kind of storytelling, it's always kind of nice to have that kind of personal, emotional appeal to it. You know, we're in the tech space, so sometimes things can feel really technical and impersonal. So how can you tie that back and make it relatable for someone to read? So we have used headshots before. We've used pictures of, our team on site with our customer team, celebrating a go live or looking at a document together, things like that to kind of show that relationship and that rapport and put a face to a name. I don't know that it's essential to have. I think it's a nice touch if it works, but it's definitely not something to push for and make the customer uncomfortable about if you're asking and they don't want to. I just kind of respect that boundary, and you can have a really compelling customer success story without it.
For us, honestly, unless it's a video, we don't ask for pictures. And I would think the logo for us would carry more weight than the picture, because what I notice is that a lot of times people move around a lot. And so sometimes on our case studies, we take a quote and I might take the name of the person off. I'll just be honest. I might say, Wendy was an amazing help with, and then I'll say / Edwards Aquifer Authority. And I'll take the name of the person out, because now in that case, they still work there, but sometimes people leave. And that it's not as important to me as it was said by this person, but it was said by this company. So I know that's a little different of an angle, but it's more important to me that it's about the company and how we help the company, less how we help the person.
Mhm. And sometimes even emphasizing the job title more than the name. You know, if you can get a quote from someone that's a little bit higher up in the organization, for example, that might be more compelling than to know that their name was Brian.
Yeah.
And especially I think these days and age where people are moving around so much more, that they're not staying at jobs, in my opinion, 5 to 10 years like they used to. Maybe they're staying at a job 2 to 3 years, but I still
Mhm.
want to use that quote. So the quote is still a viable quote, even if that person doesn't work there anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, definitely. And even just knowing this is someone in the finance department or this is someone in the operations department, so they can get in the right frame of mind around that. I think that that's very important too and stuff. So all good points. And I am late on my commercial break. We've had such a good topic here. I'm sorry, Collaboration Works. We love you, and I am apologizing for having this come out late. But if you have a project or a great success story, I think we have noticed with the call so far that case studies are hard to write or we don't have the time. Collaboration Works is there to help you out. Um, Shameless plug, I've used them in the past for some of my case studies when I was working at a bar. And you know what's kind of nice about it is that you have that neutral opinion. Like sometimes you are so in the weeds or you understand your product so well that you might not ask all the right questions. So by having an outsider come in and ask those questions for you, it really helped a lot. And you know, it's Anya, so she's fabulous, and I won't hide. She's there. She's a great asset in the community as well. So, um, hit her up, and thank you for supporting every month for the last 3 years. As she was the founder of this actually, who convinced the rest of us to tag along. So, that being said, we'll stop on the history lesson there, and we kind of already talked about this one about do your clients appreciate thank yous? So maybe not as an incentivizing, but is it just a little note? Is it a gift basket? Is it a cookie? Has there been something that you send that you've noticed that clients really appreciate after the fact as a thank you gift, or just as a smile thank you? Sabrina.
I think it was yeah, Anya put in the chat, you know, they did a highly personalized gift basket after they were done. We do that too. Like it what we send out is going to depend on the level of involvement of that client. If it's a video testimonial and I went there with the videographer, like we're going to give them something great. It's going to be highly personalized to those people, exactly what she was talking about, like their favorite sports team, or if they have, you know, a culture of they're all big whiskey drinkers, or you know, whatever it is, to make sure that we're saying thank you in the right way. I always, no matter what, handwritten notes to every single client that participates in a case study. For some of the, you know, smaller ones, maybe it's just a 20-minute interview. We'll send them a nice logo mug or a Stanley mug or a blanket, or you know, something that just says thank you and we appreciate you. Because you know, our engagement with our clients doesn't stop when that case study or when that project is over, and we always want to make sure that we're giving the best experience. So it's just part of that partnership and saying thank you. So we always do something.
Cool. Oh, that's good. Stacy, do you guys, well, I'm sure you say thank you, but do you do anything special with your thank you?
Honestly, we don't. I feel like after this conversation, I definitely need to do more. Um, but obviously a thank you, a phone call. For me, it's a personal phone call. I just call them up and tell them how much we appreciated them assisting us. But I do think that moving forward, I think I probably have to do more. Most of ours are not video, and they are a PDF 2-pager, but it's still time out of their day and they're still doing something to help us, which we appreciate. But I do think paying more attention to that is my biggest takeaway from this, is that I need to do more of a thank you. And also that Rolodex flip card, I'm down. I've gotta, because it's easy, and that's something that I could even, I'll go back to that I might not even need to talk to the client for that. I could just talk to our consultants. Our consultants would know enough about spending all that time with the go live, where they would know enough to answer those questions, that might really help my sales team if we had, 20 or 30 after every go live, a little Rolodex for them. That might be really helpful. So
Oh, I hear you, Stacey. I learn something every month, and I'm like, this one I've got like, and then these you guys come on and you teach something always. So, and not to put like sometimes a thank you is all they need too. Like let's not say that we have to give a gift for everything either. If it works for you, you don't have to change it either. I wasn't to put you on the spot or anything.
we have,
I
we have a
would
nice,
say too, oh, sorry, go ahead, Stacy.
we have a nice little notebook that I could send. It doesn't have to be huge. It could just be something small.
Yeah. I would just add the tip to just be aware of the industry that the customer is in. We do a lot of work in the public sector, and that industry is really sensitive to accepting gifts. Thank you cards are obviously fine, and kind of depending on the situation, I think you can do gifts of like up to 25, but sometimes even then it's not okay. So just kind of be aware of the industry, because sometimes they can accept gifts and you don't want to accidentally put them in an awkward position. But for most industries, gifts are very much appreciated.
No, but that's a good point too. I used to work with a lot of engineering firms, and I remember one year I came with a gift basket as the Christmas elf, and they're like, "We can't take this." I'm like, "Well, what am I gonna do with this now?" So, yeah, that's
That elf
definitely a
walking
good
away.
point. Yeah, you go back into your car and you like start eating the chips or whatever. But no, I didn't do that. But yeah, no, very very good point. So let's get to our final question. We have only a couple minutes left. So do you have any advice for people who are not currently doing this, who have been turned away, or who have stopped doing in the past? What kind of advice would you have to get back on the horse or get on that horse the first time? So, Sabrina, take us away. Set us into the
You know,
sunset.
yeah, I would just say every company's got to have a couple raving fans, right? Let's figure out who those people are and start with those and get the low hanging fruit first and get those going. And then once you have that process figured out of how does this work internally at my company and how can I be the most successful at this, that kind of gets that ball rolling. You start getting buy-in from people around the organization that it's really not that hard to have a conversation and talk about what you do. And showcasing your consultants as heroes is just as important as this, and is showcasing your clients as well. Making those consultants feel like what they do matters and people are watching and there's a huge impact that they have. You're going to get more and more buy-in across the organization to continue to do case studies and have them continue to spend their time with you telling you the stories.
I don't know, that is a very good tip. And Delaney, how about you give us your last tip of the day?
Yes. I kind of have two pieces of advice here. One would be just to start small. I think it can be an overwhelming process. So just kind of starting small, like Sabrina said, kind of getting those customers first who you kind of have that rapport with. Even kind of looking at some of the things that you are already doing, and you might realize that you've kind of been building customer success stories and you didn't even realize it, whether that's like a Microsoft award submission, things like that. A lot of those involve pulling the kind of details that would be involved in a customer success story. So just looking at what you already have and building upon that. And also, if you have the budget, I mean, go to the pros. you know, like the sponsor of today's webinar, Collaboration Works. There's, you know, so many different organizations out there who like this is their bread and butter. They do this every day. Even if you just partner with them for a couple to get familiar with the process till you feel like you can stand on your own 2 feet and do it alone, they can really help set you on the right path, get you familiar with the type of questions to ask, how to kind of create those short, compelling stories. Yeah, so huge advocate of, if you need help, seek it. Use your resources.
That was exactly why we reached out to Anya, was because we're like, no one internally was really good at it or wanted to do it or was nervous. So it gets them out quickly. Like someone mentioned, like sometimes it's like we need 20 by the end of the month. We all have our day jobs still, so I think that's a good way. And starting small, like you said, looking for that low hanging fruit, like make it easy and not as painful, because we know it's a process. So just, a little band-aid, not like the whole, cast on the first shot. So I want to say thank you very much. There was so much chat going on. I even missed questions this time. So thank you everyone who's listening today. Thank you, Sabrina, Delaney, Stacy, for being on the call. Don't forget, if you like this month, come back next month. It's about surviving a redesign. So if you still have PTSD, come share your grievances with us, or if you're thinking about going into a redesign, come listen to some of the gotchas that we have all lived in the past. And if you've missed a session, that's fine. My feelings aren't hurt. Go back and listen to them. I think there's a lot of great information out there. And also, sharing is caring. Please share with other people internally that you think might be interested in topics like this. We are here to build our community. And if anyone has any ideas for upcoming sessions, or if someone else wants to be a panelist or start a book club, I'm still waiting for that one. Please reach out. We are always happy to hear from you. So thanks again, everyone, and have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you so
Bye
much.
now.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.